Well, hello, wherever you are. It's been quite a week, hasn't it? And I can't believe it's Saturday, a new month, and this is your your weekly vlog, your weekly newsletter. And if you're not on my mailing list, please go join me there at Access Your True Nature, where I bring you tips and tools and upcoming news of events and various ways to really deepen into trust and to believe in yourself again, to really love yourself again. So I want to speak to this topic of anxiety again, because it's been coming up a lot for some of my clients, and I've certainly had a few sleepless nights while I've been house sitting at my friends and wondering what it is that I'm picking up in the environment, what I'm picking up in the collective right now that can not only I can contribute to, but that can support me in really looking at how to move through fear, even though it's not an easy thing. And if you've been feeling some of that, just know you're not alone. Between all the solar flares and the Schumann resonances spikes and big energy downloads with the new moon, there's a lot of shifts that we have to make right now to just accommodate and find our way, really track our way back to our true nature again. And if you're just joining me, hi. We're talking about all that edginess that's going on at the moment, and how you can really support yourself through it, because I see what's happening for people that actually aren't aware of energy movements and things that are happening on a spiritual realm, that they're feeling like they're losing control, and they're also really afraid. We're all afraid of the unknown, and that's just the way our nervous systems are wired. So just hang in there, because this is going to be another big week for us coming up, and there's a lot happening on a personal level as well that's being felt as a really huge push to make some of these uncomfortable changes. And of course, this is why I show up and give you some insight on what I know has worked to get results, not just for myself, but my clients as well. And just also understand that, we need to honor our own processes. We also need to honor the process. Hi, Alan, lovely to see you here. Of the collective, because it doesn't happen in one big push. And we have to consider that fear is always going to be there, and it's my intent to not have to sit in the lesson of fear, where we're starting to push out on the outside edges of our current reality, which, even though it's predictable and maybe feels safe and comfortable, it actually isn't. So I've always kind of believed that when it comes to forming what we all want, right? More safety, more connection, just more belonging, not only to ourselves, but to others. That trusting relationships, whether it's with a horse or your cat or your dog or other people, it's not about arriving with an enormous bank of knowledge or knowing all the right answers. Instead, animals constantly remind me that and this is really key, that we need safety first. Before we can start to create or change our current reality, we need to finally feel safe enough to show up wildly imperfect, and then we can build this courage muscle to start to express our own needs. And this is work. There is no magic pill for this. And I don't care what anybody else says. I know this is about slow and steady. This is about actively appreciating your 1 degree shifts and really pushing pause on the world and just going, wow, this is where I am now, right? Not getting lost in the past. That's actually going to prevent you from creating a future. We need to be present. So this really has to become the mastery of cultivating a truly magical connection, not only with our eager animal or cat or equine partners, but also with one another. And they're such great teachers at just showing us how to be present. You know, you don't see a dog or an elephant or a lion or a horse or any kind of animal you know, staying in a place that's uncomfortable for them because somebody told them that, you know, you just need to stay a little longer and give the person or the other, you know, the other being another chance. No, they know what feels good to them, and they know what that doesn't feel good for them, and they move out as quickly as they can when it doesn't feel like a kindness to their bodies. And that's where we really need to go back to really feeling it viscerally in our body. What's a kindness? What's expansive? What's light? And build on that, and move away from these sort of heavier vibrational frequencies, which include this old programming of, you know, fearing the worst case scenarios in our own lives. So just know, you know, that it's not possible to teach you everything you need to know, and what I know about unresolved trauma and the emotional effects that it has on our health and our relationships in these little daily Facebook lives. But yeah, if they are a contribution to you, you know, please let me know and share them, and let's build this tribe of really returning to our hearts and returning to trust that we each are playing a very vital part in the up-leveling of human consciousness. So you know, what I can tell you is that relating to your tender heart, as opposed to ignoring your body, and developing a very compassionate relationship to your emotional life, to your thoughts, to your feelings that create the emotions. It is a lifelong practice. At least I've found that, you know, that if we're going to break free of any kind of anxiety or depression, and I'm using depression today in the term of, you know, feeling so deeply hopeless because you can't actually see a future for you. You just don't feel like you are going to fit, and a lot of times anxiety stops us from actually even being able to use our imagination to see what our future could hold if we were able, you know, if we were open to exploring it. So it's easy, I know, to sort of reach the end of kind of a brief awareness that you might get here, or listening to podcasts, or whatever it is that you're doing, reading a book, and it is a brief moment, right? It's one that sort of cracks the door, lets a little bit more light in, to expose some of our shadow parts and our old sort of default patterns and ways of being in our lives. But my foot's going to sleep. But you know, I think as well, it's so easy to use Facebook as a distractor as well. Anything that sort of takes you away from being present, for me, is a distractor implant, and that includes you know, those lower vibrational frequencies of anger and jealousy and hate and rage, and all self-abandoning and all self-rejecting ways of almost like spiritually bypassing the real sort of daily work, because it's uncomfortable to feel your feelings. I get that, and I know how difficult it can be to lean into pain, because to your body it feels like you're going to die. And that's the work that we need to do on the nervous system, to know that we're not going to die. Hi, Shirley. And it is impossible, you know, to do this work on your own, because they're blind spots for a reason, you know, because there are old attachment wounds, and you've used these incredible coping strategies from your childhood, and you're a master at using them. So they don't go away overnight. And trust is faith in action. And it's one of the things I've certainly come to learn in this lifetime, is to learn to trust again. So, you know, be kind, be gentle, be patient with yourself, because it doesn't happen overnight, but it is possible to change it. So, you know, when that momentum of your life takes over, and that resistance, that inner dialogue, those old inner saboteur voices, those default patterns show up, know that that it's temporary. Know that it's moving you toward the light, and just take a breath. I don't get overwhelmed by finding your tracks. Oftentimes in the wild, when we're tracking an elephant or a lion with the trackers who've done this since they were born and have that passed on in their genes, we lose the tracks sometimes when the terrain changes. And instead of looking at where we're standing, we need to sort of backtrack. We need to look at, okay, where did I come from, but not get stuck in it. Look at it as a springboard to take you towards more of what you want, which is, more time spent in happiness than in a suffering state. So no, as quickly as you fall into those old habits where you are postponing your life, or you're in a state of inertia, where you kind of feel like you're chasing your desires, but it's a struggle and it's uphill. You stop pushing, right? You stop pushing and you come back into your body, and you really feel what it is that's going on under the surface. And I spoke about this a couple of days ago. So if we just look at one aspect of anxiety today, it's a response from your nervous system that something's off, that you smell a rat. If you think about all the ways our gut intuition, our gut brain is sort of telling us this before we learn to conceptualize or make sense or meaning of all of this stuff. It's always telling you there's something in your environment that you need to look at. And because of the way we're programmed to our parents' body language, the way that they expressed it when we kind of were just starting to crawl and they were afraid we were going to fall down and hurt ourselves. We grow up thinking that we need to be afraid of trying new things, rather than looking at, can I get excited about this and know that if I fall, I'm going to get up again, and be willing to have people to support you in all of that. Because I think anxiety's sort of primary message in Western culture anyway is how terribly wrong we are, that we need to be fixed, that we're disconnected from feeling, which leads to, more children growing up believing that their natural, beautiful, big, wide spectrum of human emotions is wrong and shameful. And I know it certainly was that for many of us growing up. And then, of course, what we learn, as I said earlier, is that we bring that into adulthood with us. Instead of saying, what am I aware of, we're looking at being careful. We're holding back all the time. We're afraid, based on what we learned as children, through the adverse childhood experiences, through chronic, unpredictable, toxic stress, through hurt and betrayal, and things that happen to us in relationship with other people. So if we really, want to find a cure, and I use that term really lightly for things like chronic disease, like autoimmune diseases, what we need to do is look at get to the root cause of when did I turn against my body? When did I start rejecting my body's internal compass, my intuitive knowing? Because that is inflammation in the body, where we're actually got one foot on the pedal and one foot on the brake, and we're wondering why we're spinning our wheels. So a good place to start is, instead of being anxious about what could happen, just because your family line might be predisposed to diabetes or breast cancer doesn't mean you're going to get it. And this is the work that I do with epigenetics, where we go back and see how many markers you're predisposed to turning that on and off when life triggers some of this old subconscious programming. So we want to clear that at the root level of it. And instead of seeing what's, wrong, instead of calling these things disorders, what if we call them gifts, right? That our depression is taking us towards something where we maybe need to look at deep rest, or we maybe need to look at when we decided that we couldn't create a brighter future for ourselves. And certainly when it comes to our bodies, we need to start to see what's happening as the body's doing something right in response to that underlying trauma. And that's the paradigm shift, from looking at things as chronic and dis-ease, as disease in its actual definition being the resistance to having life being easy. And we need to really look at being more trauma informed in that, especially with emotional trauma, which is a lot more subtle and unseen to the naked eye than physical trauma. And there's nothing more important, I think, that you can do than do your own trauma work, and to be part of a trauma revolution that is part of what this group is, of being willing to inform yourself and then make educated, informed choices and ask questions to really challenge the status quo of Western medicine, where they're not bringing into the whole body, they're just treating symptoms. There's still, a lot of Western medicine is still in the dark ages. So how do you go from disease to more ease and flow? Well, first, as I said, we have to develop a kinder and a gentler relationship to our feelings, by first knowing that just because that we're the ones that feel things, we are not the identity to the feeling. So if I'm feeling upset, I'm the one that's feeling the emotion of upset. I'm not the upset itself. And this is oftentimes where we form a lot of these attachment wounds, because we feel like we need fixing, that we're intrinsically broken. So, for beliefs to change, we have to get really honest about where we formed them, what age we were when we formed the belief, and to change that old story, because they were there to protect us. And when we are still in a protective or a defensive pattern, we can't create, because it risks the risk's too big, right? In the story, in the nervous system, in the brain, it's just like, oh no, we need to avoid that, because if we go there, we're going to be hurt. So when you can start to say, you know what, we've all been hurt in our lives, we've witnessed hurt, we've witnessed betrayal, we've have many reasons, justifications why we feel the way that we do, and it's part of being human, and it's part of being willing to, again, be responsible to reparent ourselves, to grow ourselves up, because we weren't taught how to tend to hurt and express our emotions in a healthy way. And we're told that we need to protect and guard our hearts, by putting up heart walls and barriers and projecting hurt, often unknowingly, on others to avoid the attention being put on our own hurt. So, this may be, it's not easy. Let me just leave it at that, because I don't want to go rambling on too much today. But if this is making sense or if this is helpful, please let me know. I'd love to know if this is resonating with you. Because when we can start to see that we no longer, I love you, Alan. Thank you for giving me some feedback. It's sometimes I think I'm just talking all to myself or myself. So I'm glad that this helps other people too. So, just because something maybe protected you in your childhood doesn't mean that you need that protection forever. And I think that's when we can say thank you to our child parts that are still running our lives, and go, yes, and I don't need you anymore. But, what about this? It's about bringing your child parts home and learning to literally be with a new story. So, a lot of you that work with me, that are part of my tribe, you are highly sensitive, you are empaths, and when you can start to realize some of the stories that you've been telling yourself, like, my feelings are too much, or my feelings make me weak, or I'm embarrassed, or feelings are, feelings don't change anything, or men or boys aren't supposed to cry, that's a big one. You don't have time to feel, it's not safe to feel, you're going to be judged if you're too sensitive. I know that was one for me as a child, and still is. Or that you're going to lose control if you let yourself feel, and you're going to go crazy, or you're going to, get swallowed into a black hole and die. Or that if you let your feelings out, that you're going to fall into this deep depression and you're not going to be able to get out. I know that's a big one. It certainly was for me. Or, settling for a fine life where you're actually slowly dying inside. And that feelings are just not okay. I know all of them for me too, Alan. So I just want to actually, I have to stand up for a second and sit on this, because my bum is so beautiful by the fire, but my legs don't like it so much. So, all of these beliefs that bring up the stories are really just all saying that I don't feel safe enough to feel my feelings. And you're not alone. Like I said, this reality hasn't encouraged us to stay with our feelings. That's the spiritual bypass. That's the programming that might have been very well-meaning, but it's not what our soul's growth needs. And it's a tricky belief system, to work with, because at one time, when you were perhaps really, really small and the feelings were way too big and intense for you to handle alone, you didn't know what to do with them. And, that belief for you might have been true then. But, that's one of the reasons why your sort of brilliant protective system, right, those defensive patterns have been running your life, because they're doing the best they can to keep you safe and keep you going. And, by now, as adults, we need to grow our child parts up. As I said, we have to know that we can handle these feelings, that we're not going to die if we change our story, and that in order to sort of break through your anxiety or these sort of intense emotions that feel like depression or overwhelm or frustration or anger, that absolute rage that's ripping your insides apart, and you're afraid to funnel that in a healthy way outward, just trust that you can break through. But you have to do the work at the level of your nervous system, right? We have to retrain the brain and the neural pathways that are telling you otherwise, which is why most of the time my online or my group programs are 40 days. There's so much significance about 40 days, and 90 days is even better, because you get more support and you get more training within those sort of containers. But just for today, I want to go back to one of the easy ways that maybe you can use right now in just sort of reversing the habit of pushing away your feelings, and instead start to learn to get curious and move towards them with that sort of tenderness of a beginner's mind that you would have had as a child. And I just encourage you to sort of practice this exercise, throughout the day, or whenever you're feeling that sort of old feeling of anxiety rising to the surface, or some of these old patterns about to kick in. Because when we're used to living from, the neck up, I always say your body's this beautiful horse with this incredible heart and this incredible gut intuition. That's your prey aspect of you. And your head is like the rider, that's totally unconsciousness that's trying to command this incredible horsepower. And it wastes a lot of our vital life force energy. So if you can sort of just drop into your body and notice what you're feeling. And I know I do this over and over again, because a lot of times we need to be reminded that we're not used to being in our bodies, and we're certainly not used to being safely embodied. And it's these little simple exercises that a lot of people minimize, and they don't see the value in it, because again, we've been trained to know that you've got to pay high prices, and you've got to have $1,000 an hour psychiatrist, so you've got to be in the the 10,000 entry level to a nervous system program to get any change, when actually all you need to do is say yes and take the aligned action. Remember, trust is a muscle. It's faith in action. And the more that you practice it, the less those inner saboteur voices are going to make you literally scare yourself sick. And it can become a part of your rituality. So the 1 minute scan, okay, the visualization, is activating the imagination, because the imagination doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. And I talk about this a lot in my Out of the Blues program, where in Chinese medicine there is actually as part of your brain that is called the projector, and it actually projects back through the filters what you think the world looks like. So just for today, just kind of drop in, and I just invite you to maybe just close your eyes, maybe just put your hand on your heart, and just remind yourself, remind your inner child parts, the parts of you that have been doing such a good job trying to keep you safe, but it's actually time to fire them from that job very lovingly. And just remember, just tell those parts that feeling this isn't going to kill you. It's not going to hurt you. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. And just because the belief system that you developed as a child, you can just thank your little one inside. Thank you so much for doing the best you could with what you had to keep me safe. And just remind that little one. Just tell her what she needs to hear. Ask her, what does she need right now, or he need right now? And maybe she won't trust you, or he won't trust you right now, and that's just fine. But just remind her or him. Just say, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. I'm so sorry that you've been working so hard all these years to keep me safe from feeling hurt or pain again. But I'm here now. I'm here, little one. I've got you. And I'm sorry that I left you. I'm so sorry that I left you having to deal with all of this. But I just didn't know any better then. But I do now. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving you again. I'm so sorry. But I love you. And I see you and I honor you for doing such a good job of protecting yourself when nobody else was there for you, including me. But you don't have to do this anymore. I've got you. And you can maybe see her or him in front of you and ask your little one to take your hand and to just walk with you on this journey. And you can just remind yourself, your nervous system, your inner child parts, that it's okay to feel this way. Whatever she's feeling, angry, hurt, afraid, whatever you're feeling, it's okay. And just say to this part of you, I know it wasn't safe as a child when nobody knew how to tend to your big emotions, but it's safe now. And now just do an internal scan. Just check in with your body. Just check in with your little one. Just notice where you feel any tension or sensation. You might feel like you have a headache. Maybe you have a lump in your throat, or tears that came up when you just said you're sorry to your little one. Maybe it feels like your body wants to get the hell out of here and switch this video off. Just remember that whatever comes up, it's safe now. You're safe. And one of the exercises, again, very simple, that I offer to you, that's part of the somatic neurosensory exercises within my Out of the Blues program, is if you do feel like you want to run right now, or you're feeling yourself be flooded with the emotions or the memories of when perhaps you felt all alone, you felt neglected and you were hurt as a child. And just orient yourself to the room. So just take a look around you and notice that you're in an environment that is safe. I love you, Ellen. I know it's been a long journey, but you're braver and more resilient than you think. So just stay with me now. And if you have your cat lying next to you, you can give them a stroke, or maybe just give yourself a beautiful hug, maybe rock your body a little bit. And just tell yourself, it's safe here now. It is safe to feel your feelings. And as you do that, just whatever comes up, remind yourself that it's safe, that you're safe. I had a beautiful little client once called Zola, and he used to rock himself just like that. So I call this my Zola love. He used to say, I'm okay. It's okay. I'm okay. So just remind your inner little one that she's okay. He's okay right now. Oh, I love that, Max. You're a sweetie. And now I want you to just become curious about where that sensation was. And if you're listening to this now on the replay and you feel brave enough to share, just notice where that sensation or tension, what body part responded to that, to the love, to the apology, or to the belief that I don't know if I can trust you. Maybe it's I don't feel safe. Just notice where that is, and maybe notice if it has a color or a word attached to it, or a memory, right? Or an image. And know that that is your body self-expression at the time that you were when you first decided that it wasn't safe for you to feel this much intensity as an empath, as a highly sensitive being. It was probably really early on. So don't push energy at this. Just be curious. Allow the feeling to come to the surface. And you may want to write down, or after we've done this, just describe whatever you felt, how old you were, what you looked like, if there was a memory or an image that came up for you, or a color or a word. You can just write that down as best you can. I find that sometimes feelings are easily expressed in metaphors, like I feel irritation in my thighs and it feels like 100 crawling ants all over my skin, or I can feel a fluttering in my chest and it feels like 1,000,000 butterflies trying to fly out, or I feel love in the back of my body and it feels like this beautiful warm wave rolling over me. Or maybe it feels like a stabbing pain in your belly, in your heart, and it feels so intense, like that fire, that it's like there's these surges of hot, searing energy coming up from your belly to your heart, whatever it is for you. I noticed too that oftentimes this may be a past lifetime where it wasn't safe, where you were persecuted or maybe killed or burnt at the stake or stoned or hung for being a medicine man or a shaman. So just allow whatever that is to come up for you. And also, keep reminding yourself that it's perfectly fine to just feel the feeling. And maybe that is just like, I feel numb. I feel dead inside. These are often what my clients say. I feel so sad, but I can't remember the last time I actually cried. And that'll bring up another layer ready to heal when you realize when it wasn't safe for you to show your vulnerability and cry, to really break down and just let the grief out of your body. Such a beautiful somatic experience that grief has a very primal sound to it. And then the last thing I would say about this, because I know how precious your time is just stay with the feeling as long as you possibly can, right? Again, this is one of the neurosensory exercises that I give inside of my private sessions and my program, my Out of the Blue program, is to follow the impulse, to follow the natural impulse of your body and stay with it a little bit longer than you did the time before, where you kind of withdrew and self-abandoned again because it just felt like you were gonna die. Because oftentimes when we let go of these old stories, it feels like a death to the body. And the body, through the brain and the nervous system, is going to do everything it possibly can to make sure that you don't die, right? So just stay with that feeling a little bit longer than perhaps you did the minute before, because that's really where the healing begins to happen. And if you have a few minutes, you can come back to this video and just push pause and take a few minutes to journal or draw, or just see if you can allow the feelings to sort of really move through you in some way. Like I said, if you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to move your body, move your body. That's not good. There's a cat in the neighborhood that's terrorizing my friend's cat, and I'll have to go and see to that. But when you just start to notice yourself traveling back up into your head, just bring your attention gently back into your body, because this is something you've done for a long time to avoid feeling pain as you go up into your head and you try and fix it from a cognitive point of view, which is why none of the changes hold in mantras and meditations and law of attraction work, because it's done from a mental construct. So just bring yourself gently back and use your breath to do that. You can use touch to do that. And when I work with my clients, I often just remind them, to come back into their heart and their body, because it's just a habit to travel back to those familiar and safer realms of the mind, of head tripping. I know you will, Alan. Yeah, just gentle. And as I've said, this isn't easy work, but you'll know this is happening when you start to hear you're telling stories. And this is why I love animals as such great teachers to teach us how to be human. And often when people that are learning to do animal communications don't trust that the voice that they're hearing is their animals, I always say to them, you'll know, because animals don't waste words. They're short, they're exact, they're precise. They don't get all wordy about stuff. It's very clear and precise. So if you're being wordy or you're worrying, you're in your head again. So don't judge it, because it's completely normal. And just notice and name it, and notice and name it, and notice and name it. And a great way of inquiry there is to say, I feel this because, I feel this because, I feel this because. And at least doing that exercise 5 times will get you to the root cause of what's really going on underneath that. But sometimes you need to go for pages and pages and pages in your journal, and that's absolutely fine too. So just keep naming it, because once you name it, you've taken that first step into acknowledging that it actually is there, and then you can take some aligned action, right? That faith in action to return it, to trust, to come back to the heart. And I know this isn't easy work, but it's never easy to change a habit, and it's especially difficult when we have to rewire lifetimes and lifetimes of personal rejection, of self-abandonment, of neglecting ourselves, of neglecting our feelings, of not relating to yourself from a place of safe embodiment. So slow and gentle, these steps might seem so simple, and on a cognitive level it's easy to understand it, but the test is, right, the mastery is implementing consistently, building your momentum, building your trust muscle, but always from a place of gentleness and patience and self-compassion, who are your greatest allies, right? They're the gifts from the universe, from Gaia herself, from the animals. You're patient and generous and loving in the journey, in the exploring. And in case anyone didn't tell you today, you are perfectly made. You came in with this beautiful divine blueprint to be an expression of joy and connection, and to share your gifts in the world, and to know and trust you are loved and there's nothing wrong with you, and you have done a fantastic job. Your child parts have done a brilliant job keeping you safe and coping with the challenges on a day-to-day basis, and they have got you through so much. You're so resilient. But it's time to take your little one in your arms and tell her she can rest, he can rest here, because you've got it. So do your trauma work, and know that healing and health and abundance and purpose, they are your birthright. They really, really are your birthright. So just remember, to get out there and take consistent action. Make it real, make it come alive, because in the doing, your body's going to start to come alive. And that's what we want, because most people, as I said, that come to me, they feel dead inside. I felt dead inside. 17 years ago, I felt so dead inside. I could not see a future other than to try and take my own life. That is the chronic depression. That's what it does to our bodies. So if you're ready, make the first move off of the couch binge watching Game of Thrones. Instead, why not make a choice and ask me how to play the game of trust in your own life? I'd love to help you with that. And wherever you find yourself this week, just remember, I love you, I see you, I honor you, and I want you to start being love as a verb in your own life, because nobody can make those choices for you, only you can. And it starts by saying yes, by giving yourself permission to go into the space that's uncomfortable, to feel your feelings, and to know that you are divinely guided and protected. If you just drop down and you listen, your body has all the answers. And I'll meet you there. All right, have a beautiful day or night wherever you are. Bye. Mwah.